Hi, I'm here to do this interview on my thoughts and my opinions on the movie, the film, The Wrestler, just starring Mickey Rourke, just recently released. But before I get started on my thoughts and opinions, I'd like to answer some questions from my father. If he has any questions to ask me.
Yes, Jess, I wanted to ask you about the movie. Of course, I saw it with you, and I was just wondering basically what your reactions were. I know what mine were. Do you think he portrayed a good character? Would you say that would sum up what you think a wrestler would do and be like?
As far as Mickey Rourke, his acting performance, I think he did a fantastic job of portraying the character. The character was one of a real-life wrestler, whose career is starting to wind down, and it was a very spot-on performance and very emotional and touching.
The thing about it, at the end of the picture, we saw him in a final fight, and we don't know, did you think he survived that, or was that actually, did he die from that last match? Because he's in bad shape. We knew his heart was in a bad condition.
Right,
So you think he lived past that, or do you think that did him in?
Well, I hate to say for sure that it was this or it was that, because really the director of the movie intended it to be left that way, to end that way, so that people can make up their own mind. Obviously, if he died, that would have been a really bitter note to go out on to end the movie on. If he lived, still his heart's in bad shape. So that at that last moment of the movie, that's the climax where we see he's living at the highest point of his life here. He loves what he does. He's performing to his peak, and that's really what it's all about.
But do you think most wrestlers have a sad life like that? Like with his daughter, he had a bad relationship with her, which went from bad to worse. And also with the lady that he loved, he tried to get close to her, and that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true for most wrestlers, or?
No, I'd say this is just an emphasis for the film, because the film is a drama, and it's taking one situation, not necessarily a popular or most common situation, and it's kind of highlighting that. In particular, this guy, the character that Mickey Rourke plays, Randy the Ram Robinson, had a tough life, and he made some bad decisions, and he's kind of, he's at a point in his life where things aren't looking too good, and that's basically the mood and the atmosphere of the whole film.
Vince McMahon saw the movie, and he did not care for the movie. He said there were certain things that he found distasteful, that he didn't like. What do you think those things were?
Oh, I'm sure Vince McMahon didn't particularly enjoy this movie or approve of it because the way it portrayed professional wrestlers, that they were basically, they use and abuse their bodies, and they go through a lot of trauma and sacrifice everything for their profession. But that's not particularly true. I mean, the wrestlers are well cared for. I know in Vince's organization, they're very well cared for, and the wrestling community really is like a brotherhood where they, to a certain extent, they look out for each other's health. And, it's not all gloom and doom like the movie portrays. But because I think the main reason why Vince McMahon didn't like the movie is because it was a little too personal, a little too close to reality for him. And maybe he perhaps saw some history of himself and other wrestlers where things didn't go very well. And I think that might have disturbed him.
So you're saying wrestlers are very well cared for, and they take care of each other, each other's health, and as far as safety goes. Actually, I had an opposite opinion, because I always saw that there were so many wrestlers that, at least I heard about, that were mangled and hurt, and they weren't too well compensated when they were hurt, and it was kind of more or less on their own to get well or whatever. And Would you say that's true?
Well, I think that was the case back in the 70s and maybe the early 80s, where we didn't have all these health insurance packages that come with deployment, and back then it was pretty rough. So yeah, a lot of the wrestlers that are now retired are having these issues, like they can hardly walk, and they're on death's row, and that's the case. But nowadays, the industry has changed to the point where the wrestlers are financially and pretty much medically sound.
So you think a wrestler, for a person to be a professional wrestler, that evidently they pretty much love the sport, and it can be rather rough, but they like that roughness and probably the camaraderie that they have with their fellow wrestlers, and certainly with some of the people ringside, right?
Absolutely. Wrestling is like, it's like an addiction. It's like kind of like being a rock star, or being, a world famous boxer or anything like that. You're addicted to the fame. You're addicted to, the brotherhood that you share with all your fellow wrestlers, and that type of lifestyle, although it's very physically very tough, the rewards are high.
Well, there's a lot of people probably that really care for these people and these wrestlers, and probably good friends with them. But there's also a cold element in the probably a section of the fans that really don't care too much about the person. They just want to see the roughness and the crudeness and the actually people getting beat up and hurt and in pain. And what percentage would you say they're actually the people that watch are really caring patrons of the sport?
Well, that's really tough to say, but wrestling fans are usually pretty loyal. With the WWE, they cater to a very casual fan, a casual audience, where they watch wrestling just for the thrill and the excitement, and they don't necessarily follow it. But there are more hardcore wrestling fans who support all the wrestlers. They genuinely care for the human being of their favorite wrestlers and the welfare of the wrestlers. It's not that they only appreciate the violence that goes on in the ring. They appreciate the wrestling moves, the wrestling holds, the performances on the microphone, etc. So it's really tough to say. I guess if I had to guess what percentage of fans are just there to see the violence compared to the ones that are there that really appreciate the craft, I'd say maybe around, like 25%, 10% maybe.